Rana, Rana,
Daksha Prajapati stood upon the highest peak of Mount Meru, his silhouette a commanding testament against the blazing canvas of dusk. The wind danced around him, respectful, as if aware of whom it toyed with, the ruler of all creatures, whose very breath could alter the destiny of the earth. Below him, the world unfolded in harmonious orchestration, a testament to his unyielding dominion. Father, a chorus of voices sang from the heavens, as soft and clear as the first drops of rain on summer leaves. These were his daughters, the 27 jewels of the night sky, each bound by love and devotion to Chandra, the moon god. Their bond was a tapestry woven with threads of luminous affection, an alliance that shimmered across the cosmos, binding them together in both heart and purpose. In their celestial dance, one star shone with a brilliance that eclipsed even the radiance of her sisters, Rohini, with eyes reflecting the depth of the midnight ocean, caught the gaze of her beloved Chandra. Her laughter was a melody that twined through the ether, a sound so pure it coaxed smiles from the sternest of stars. She moved with a grace that belied the keen intelligence behind her smoldering eyes, a wit sharp enough to match wits with sages and scholars. Chandra, she whispered, and the moon god turned, as ever enslaved by the cadence of her voice. Around them, the other sisters exchanged glances of fond exasperation, their own affections for Rohini untainted by the favoritism that enfolded her. They knew the depth of her spirit, the gentle empathy that graced her every gesture. It was this shared love, this familial harmony, that cocooned them against the chills of envy. See how they thrive, these daughters of mine. Daksha's voice rumbled like distant thunder, pride swelling within his broad chest. The mountains themselves seemed to echo his approval, reverberating with the strength of his presence. And though he bore the weight of his authority with the stoicism of a titan, his heart held a softness reserved for the stars that were his lineage, a tenderness that whispered through the firmament. Chandra's fingers traced the constellations in Rohini's raven hair, each strand shimmering like a sliver of the night sky. His touch lingered with the tenderness that spoke of an adoration deeper than the fathomless void above. Beneath the silver luminescence of his gaze, she glowed, the moonlight seeming to favor her alone. Rohini, he murmured, his voice a velvet caress that caused the air itself to shiver in delight. You eclipse all stars, my love. She blushed, the hue on her cheeks rivaling the first blush of dawn, and leaned into his embrace. Around them, the world paused, as if to bear witness to a devotion that could command tides and stir the winds to whispers. Your love is the tide that guides me, she replied, her own affection mirroring his in its intensity. Daksha watched the scene unfold from his celestial vantage, his eyes gleaming with a pride that warmed the cold expanses of space. The sight of his daughter, so cherished, so revered, filled him with a satisfaction that seemed to radiate through the cosmos. Ah, my children, Daksha declared, a smile softening his authoritative mien. May your union be as enduring as the eternal heavens. His voice boomed, yet it carried the gentle undertones of a father's love. The sisters, witnessing this exchange, nodded their heads in silent agreement, their hearts full. They turned towards their father, their eyes seeking the wisdom that had guided them since time immemorial. Father, they chorused, their voices harmonizing like a celestial choir. Your blessing is our compass. Seek always the balance, Daksha intoned, his words falling like rain upon fertile soil. Let love be the light that leads you, but never forget the justice that holds the stars in their courses. A murmur of assent rippled through the gathering. They understood, these daughters of the cosmos, the delicate dance of right and wrong that they must navigate. And in their father's words, they found the strength to soar on wings of integrity. Even as Chandra's love for Rohini illuminated the path before them. As dawn approached, Rohini stood on the celestial terrace, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Time had deepened the furrows of concern on her brow. Chandra's indifference towards his other brides and sisters in law troubled her, but Rohini herself was a vision of grace, with dark tresses and a gown woven from the night sky. Her beauty and intellect captivated all who knew her, but now she pondered Chandra's actions and wondered why he had forsaken his own. Though fate had brought them together, she remained at the center of his affections, while her sisters lingered on the fringes of his heart. It was now time for Rohini to unravel the threads of right and wrong in this cosmic theatre. Golden beams of light cascaded through the grand arched windows, bathing the celestial chamber in a warm glow. Chandra's presence filled the room with a brilliance that rivaled the dawn, his eyes fixed solely upon Rohini. With a tender touch that seemed to halt time itself, he brushed a lock of star-infused hair from her face, his fingers tracing the contours of her cheek as if committing to memory the very essence of her beauty. Rohini, he murmured, his voice a melodic whisper that vibrated with divine resonance. Your radiance outshines the constellations themselves. She smiled, her lips curving with an elegance that belied the turmoil brewing within her heart. Yet, even as she basked in the warmth of his adoration, the cold silence from the shadowed corners of the chamber spoke volumes of the love denied to her sisters. Chandra, she began, her voice soft yet laced with a strength born of celestial fire. The night sky is vast, and each star has a right to dream of the moon's embrace. But he only laughed, a sound as mesmerizing as the tides he commanded, dismissing her words like errant clouds before his radiant visage. His arms encircled her, drawing her into an affectionate yet isolating orbit, his devotion unwavering but singular. Only you, my dearest, reflect my soul as the moon does the sun, he proclaimed, oblivious to the silent witnesses to their exchange. In the periphery, her sister's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, their longing for love as palpable as the cool night air that followed the moon's retreat. As Chandra's attention was consumed by his favored, they stood together, a constellation of shared grief. Later, under the quilt of twilight, Rohini joined her sisters in the secluded grove that bore witness to their whispered confidences. The gentle rustling of leaves played a mournful tune to their hushed conversation. Does he not see? Ilara's voice trembled like a leaf caught in the autumn breeze. Are we naught but shadows to him? His vision is clouded, Rohini replied, her gaze encompassing each of them with empathy. He sees only what blazes brightest, missing the subtle glow each of you possess. Then what hope have we? Whispered Meera, the pain in her voice sharp as a comet's trail. Hope must be kindled where it dwindles, Rohini said, reaching out to clasp their hands. We are sisters woven from the same cosmic cloth, our fates entwined. Together we shall find a way for all to shine. Their eyes met in silent accord, a pact formed not just in blood, but in the longing of their hearts, a vow to seek the balance that had been denied to them. With Rohini at their side, they drew comfort from her unwavering resolve. For though she was the chosen, her loyalty did not lie with the whims of a capricious moon, but with the steadfast stars that were her kin. Moonlight cascaded through the open window, painting Rohini's chamber in hues of silver and shadows. She stood there, an ethereal figure bathed in celestial light, the luminescence catching the edges of her thoughts as they fluttered like moths around a flame. Lately, the days had blended into one another, each moment with Chandra both a blessing and a bittersweet reminder of her sister's sorrow. Rohini, came a voice softer than the whisper of night blooming jasmine on the wind. It was her sister Tara, standing at the threshold, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. May I speak with you? Of course, my sister. Rohini answered, her voice a melodic chord that seemed to dance upon the air. Tara crossed the room, her steps hesitant. I saw him again today. The way he looks at you. It's as if you're the only moon that graces his sky. Rohini felt a weight settle upon her heart, a heaviness born of guilt and empathy. And what of your sky, Tara? Does it remain empty? Empty and ever longing, Tara murmured, looking our way. It is not that we begrudge your happiness, Rohini, but to be forgotten, invisible in his gaze. Say no more, Rohini interjected gently, placing a hand upon Tara's shoulder. The pain you carry, I feel it too. With quiet resolve, Rohini sought out Chandra. His chambers were vast, the walls adorned with tapestries, depicting the phases of the moon and the cyclical dance of the cosmos. Chandra was there, ensconced atop a throne carved from moonstone, his aura a radiant cloak around him. Chandra, Rohini began, her voice steady yet laden with emotion. We must speak of my sisters, your wives, who are lost in your shadow while I stand in your light. Chandra turned his gaze upon her, his countenance a serene sea beneath which currents ran deep. My love for you eclipses all else. Rohini, why do you trouble yourself with such matters? Because, she said, stepping forward, her silhouette casting a long shadow across the marbled floor. Love should not be a chalice from which only one may drink. Their hearts are parched, Chandra, and you hold the nectar that could quench their thirst. Is my affection not enough for you? Chandra asked, his voice rising like a tide. Your affection is my haven, but it cannot be my sister's prison, Rohini replied, her eyes glistening with unspilled tears. They deserve to be cherished, not merely carried along in the wake of our love. Rohini, Chandra warned, a storm brewing behind his eyes. You tread upon a path strewn with discord. Do not ask me to divide my heart. Then expand it, she pleaded. Open your eyes to the constellation of love that surrounds you, each star yearning for just a ray of your light. Enough, Chandra stood, his presence commanding the room. Your words are like daggers to my devotion. Speak no more of this. But Rohini, resolute and undeterred, met his gaze with the fierceness of a shooting star. No, my lord, it is silence that has pierced us all. If I am to be your chosen, then choose to listen. For love that does not grow is doomed to wither in the dark. This standoff hung heavy in the air, a cosmic balance teetering on the brink. Rohini's heart raced. her plea lingering like a comet's trail, awaiting either to ignite new patterns in the heavens or to be extinguished by the void of indifference. Chandra and Rohini stood facing each other, their voices clashing in a storm of words. He dismissed her concerns and proclaimed his divine authority, while she pushed back with determination and empathy. She called for justice and balance, but he laughed at the mortal concepts. In the end, Rohini pleaded for him to wake up and see the consequences of his neglect. Chandra's response was a gust, a tempestuous wind that sought to sweep away her accusations. You ask too much, wife. My love is not a commodity to be doled out in equal measure. Nor should it be hoarded, she said softly, her resolve a quiet flame burning bright in the dark. Let us end this folly, Chandra declared, his voice the finality of nightfall. You have my devotion, Rohini. Let that be enough. Enough for me, perhaps, she replied, her silhouette steadfast against the backdrop of eternal twilight. But not for justice, not for right, and so I stand, my lord, where the shadows fall and the forgotten weep, until love learns to shine on all. His silence was the void itself, profound and impenetrable. But in Rohini's heart, the battle lines were drawn, the quest for a greater love than even the gods had known, a love that would illuminate every corner of their celestial tapestry. The 26 sisters huddled together in the antechamber, their faces etched with the pain of neglect. Rohini's eyes brimmed with tears, while Mrigashirsha stared ahead stoically. They clasped each other's hands, gathering courage for the confrontation ahead. With hesitant steps, they entered Daksha's hall. The father they loved yet feared towered before them on his jeweled throne. Father, Rohini began, her voice trembling. We have suffered much at Chandra's hands. The sisters nodded, faces filled with sorrow. He spurns us for Rohini alone, cried Ardra. We yearn for his love too. Daksha's eyes narrowed, shock shifting to anger. How dare Chandra hurt his daughter so? His voice boomed through the hall. I will summon that wretched moon god here at once to account for this outrage. The sisters recoiled at his fury, but felt emboldened too. Perhaps finally Chandra would treat them fairly. Chandra strode into the hall, back straight, head held high. His self-assured smirk made Daksha bristle. Explain yourself, Daksha thundered. How could you neglect my daughter so? Chandra shrugged. Rohini is my true love. I never desired the others. His casual cruelty ignited Daksha's rage. You arrogant fool! Daksha exploded, face reddening. You dare dismiss their anguish? Chandra met his glare defiantly. I won't apologize for following my heart. Daksha trembled with fury. This selfish ingrate felt no remorse. He would punish this insult to his daughters. Voice echoing through the silent hall, Daksha pronounced his curse. You will die a slow, wretched death for spurning my children. Shock rippled across Chandra's face. Daksha's words rang with finality. The death sentence had been passed. Chandra's arrogant facade cracked as the weight of Daksha's curse settled upon him. His skin grew pale, limbs trembling. He grasped a pillar to steady himself as the first pains of illness racked his body. Panicked murmurs rose from the gathered gods and beings. This curse will doom us all, cried Vishnu. Without the moon, life on earth will wither away. Have mercy, Daksha, Shiva implored. Undo this decree before it is too late. But Daksha stood firm, voice slicing through the chaotic din. My judgment is final. Justice will be done for my daughter's suffering. He swept from the hall, shoulders rigid with conviction. The protests faded behind him. Chandra staggered from the court, each step heavier than the last. Cold sweat beaded his brow as the curse's venom seeped through his veins. He shivered, swaying unsteadily. For the first time, the arrogant god felt the claws of fear. Mortality loomed before him, inescapable. He had brought this doom upon himself through selfishness and pride. Now he must pay the price. Chandra's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale a monumental effort. His skin glistened with feverish sweat, pale and clammy like wax. One supple limbs now shook with palsy tremors, too feeble to even lift a goblet to his cracked lips. The curse was a malignant force burrowing through his veins, devouring him from within. In desperation, he sought an audience with Lord Brahma. Chandra fell to his knees before the four-headed deity, pride cast aside. "Great Brahma, I beg of you, help me," he implored, voice hoarse. Brahma's sage eyes softened with pity. The curse cannot be undone, but it may be redirected. Hope flickered in Chandra's sunken gaze. "Whatever can be done, I humbly ask. Seek Lord Shiva at his sacred shrine. Plead for his mercy." Brahma rested a hand on Chandra's shoulder. "But know that all actions have consequences, my child." Chandra nodded, new resolve, steeling his weakened form. He would find Lord Shiva and beseech the great god's aid no matter the cost, even as sickness ravaged his body. A glimmer of desperate faith took root in his heart. Chandra embarked on the long and arduous journey to the sacred shrine of Prabhasa. Each step was agony, his limbs heavy as if filled with lead. Still he persevered through sheer force of will, never faltering. The lush forest surrounding Prabhasa was an oasis of tranquility. Birdsong and the gentle burble of a nearby stream soothed his spirit. Shafts of buttery sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the verdant undergrowth. Chandra inhaled the sweet floral scent on the breeze, a balm to his battered senses. For the first time in weeks, a sense of peace settled over him. At last, the shrine came into view, the carved stone pillars and sweeping steps radiating a timeless serenity. Chandra climbed towards the altar on trembling legs. Here, amongst the flickering oil lamps and faint chanting, the veil between mortal and divine felt thin. This was a place of power. He could feel it in his bones. With great effort, Chandra knelt before the altar and began the sacred Maha Mrityunjaya chant. Each repetition was a heartfelt plea for Lord Shiva to appear and restore his life. Exhausted yet undeterred, he persisted until the very air hummed with spiritual energy. His unwavering devotion would be rewarded. He had to believe it was not too late. Chandra's voice grew hoarse from the endless chanting, his throat raw and aching. Still he pushed on, fueled by desperation. The stone floor was hard beneath his bony knees, but physical discomfort barely registered through the haze of feverish determination. He had to keep going. This was his last chance, his only hope. If Lord Shiva did not take mercy on him here, Chandra's fate was sealed. So he chanted until he was light-headed, vision blurring with exhaustion. The oil lamps seemed to glow brighter, imbuing the shrine with a warm, otherworldly light. A profound silence fell, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, a ripple went through the air. The fine hairs on Chandra's arms stood up in response. A presence permeated the shrine, ancient and powerful beyond measure. Unable to lift his head, Chandra stared at the altar through half lidded eyes. There, wreathed in divine light, stood Lord Shiva. Chandra! Shiva's voice rumbled, deep and resonant. You have prayed long and with true devotion, but Daksha's curse cannot be fully undone. Chandra's face crumpled, tears spilling down his cheeks. Please, grant me mercy. I don't want to die. Shiva's stern features softened. He reached out, gently cradling Chandra's trembling form. Warmth enveloped the moon god as their gazes locked. I cannot reverse what has been set in motion, Shiva said gently. But your faith shall be rewarded. You will live on, though never again with the same radiance as before. Hope and humility washed over Chandra. Bowing his head, he whispered, Thank you, my lord. Your grace is beyond measure. Shiva smiled, eyes crinkling with kindness. The curse had been transformed into a blessing. Chandra remained kneeling before Lord Shiva, overcome with gratitude and humility. The mighty god's words echoed in his mind. Though the curse could not be fully removed, his devotion had been rewarded with a second chance at life. Chandra lifted his gaze, meeting the compassionate eyes of the divine being before him. Thank you, Lord Shiva, he said, his voice trembling. I vow to live the rest of my days with wisdom and fairness. Never again will I allow arrogance to cloud my judgment. Shiva nodded, his stern features softening into an approving smile. He reached out, placing a gentle hand on Chandra's shoulder. Rise, Chandra, Shiva rumbled. Take your rightful place once more amongst the heavens. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Chandra got to his feet. As he did so, he felt Shiva's hand come to rest atop his head in a protective gesture. Power flowed between them. Chandra's weakened form already felt stronger. Turning his gaze upward, Chandra saw the first faint rays of moonlight beginning to stream through the temple windows. The curse had been transformed into a blessing. He would live on under Shiva's guidance and protection, with newfound purpose and humility flowing through him. Chandra made his way out of the shrine and into the waiting night. Above him, the crescent moon shone down, waxing toward fullness. Chandra stepped out into the cool night air, his eyes drawn upward to the sliver of moon that now adorned the night sky. Though his curse could not be fully removed, the touch of Lord Shiva had granted him a second chance at life. As he walked, Chandra felt the first stirrings of power returning to his weakened limbs. With each passing moment, the moon grew fuller, its ethereal light infusing him with renewed vitality. By the time he reached the edge of the forest, the weariness that had plagued him was gone. In its place was a profound sense of peace and purpose. Looking up, Chandra saw the moon had waxed to fullness. Its pale glow illuminated the world below. Just as hope and humility now lit his way forward, he realized the moon would forever reflect the cyclical nature of life, the waxing and waning light and darkness. His role was not to rail against this eternal dance, but move in harmony with it. As he took his place once more in the heavens, Chandra vowed he would not forget the mercy he had been shown this night. He would strive to bring light and balance to the world, just as the moon brought radiance to the darkness. This was a new beginning, a chance to live with wisdom. As he settled into his rightful place, Chandra gazed down at the glowing Somnath temple below. It would stand as an enduring reminder of the power of devotion and Shiva's infinite compassion. With faith and purpose in his heart, Chandra resumed his role as the moon god. A subtle smile curved his lips as the night sky shone with his divine radiance.